So welcome back to another edition of Laois Talks. Tonight we have a broad spectrum thing to talk about with money. It's money for the county, it's money for everything. It's money for progress, it's people coming into the county. And tonight we're also joined by...
Trudy Carmody from Experiencing Ireland.
Trudy's a regular.
Donal Kelly, just a fella from the town.
Just a fella from the town. Wandered in off the street a few minutes ago.
We have to have a few townies.
We found him outside. He sat there wandering.
Yeah, he's just wandering around. We brought him in. He looked cold there, Bob.
Strolled in.
Yeah, John Hayes, Laois people.
And that's the usual crew is on tonight. We are talking about money, but what we're going to start off at first is the Christmas markets, which all appear to be happening on the same day, John. What happened there?
Well, 2 successive Sundays. So we'll talk about Sunday number 1. You had the Portlaoise market, you had the Durrow market, and you had
Portlaoise had a funny layout too, I found.
Portlaoise had, yeah.
This year's normally it's down the middle of the street, and you can approach from both sides, and it just seems a bit higgledy-piggledy this year.
Yeah, I found when I got back from the Durrow market, so I took public transport from market to market.
Low CO2 emissions, low CO2 town. Keep ticking them boxes, John.
I'm such a good boy.
Top of the class.
Top of the class. And I came back and I was going to continue filming at the Portlaoise market. And I said, no, it's basically the way it was laid out, it got too crowded. You had choke points there, and had it been, if the configuration of the stalls had been different, there'd be no choke points.
That never seemed to happen any other year, though. Well, I didn't know. Did you notice that, Trudy?
No, I found this year a little bit confusing. And yes, there was a few choke points as I went through. And it just seemed it could have been better laid out. It didn't, as a result of that, I don't think it gave the Christmassy vibe that you'd have liked.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to get Christmas vibe at the moment, mind you.
Yeah, well, that's true. I did like, though, on a positive, I did like the amount of TY students selling their products. I thought that was a nice addition.
Yeah, that does expand. Were you at it, Donald, as you go along?
I was at it, yeah.
What do you think?
Everything you just said, it was higgledy-piggledy.
It finished up too early, though, as well, no, right?
But what was there was a lot of confusion coming up to it, whether it was going to be held or not. So, I mean...
Could have been cancelled.
With due respect, I suppose, everybody did what they had to do and kind of rushed. I can't imagine that was planned, all year long, but everybody, I guess, tried their best at it,
Yeah.
Yeah, but on that, I mean, back to the issue of, so that Sunday, you had Portlaoise, Castletown and Durrow markets on the same time, not only the same day, the same times. Unfortunately, I couldn't get out to Castletown market. And then the following Sunday, you have Stradbally, Timahoe and Mount Rat markets on the same day.
Right. There are 3 big markets now.
But what would you suggest, John?
Well,
if you have them each week, it's 6 weeks leading into Christmas. So
yeah, well, my suggestion, firstly, that you have a committee, God help us, but you have one rep from each.
That's just what we need, another committee.
Or a tribe, let's call it the Laois Markets tribe, whatever you want to call it. And you have one representative from each market. And you meet in January, you have the calendar there. Every village, every town in the county gets one date in November, one date in December. And you may not change.
But you could also run them later. I find they all run at the same time in the same hours. Right? So they all start 10 and they're over at 3 or the same. So you could actually start.
So what if you did one in the morning, start at 10, finish at 3, break for an hour, and the new crowd come in?
Yeah, you could do that. And
have it 4 till 7 or 8 or something. Yeah.
German markets all do evening stuff.
Oh,
and even the Belfast market does evening stuff as well. That's a really big market.
It is.
And that stretches right.
And you could have different products in the evening, more appropriate to evening.
Well, you could have whatever you wanted at it, but it's just if it stayed open longer, you'd have more chance of hitting all of the markets on the same day.
Absolutely, but also we're missing out on the night trade, the local businesses, the cafes, the bars, the restaurants. Because talking to some people afterwards, after the Portlaoise market in particular, they were flying at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, absolutely jam packed, and then poof, gone.
It all disappears, yeah.
And you're basically letting all that money walk out the door.
Or it heads to a pub, or it heads away.
Yeah, I know.
And that filters off somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be nice? I know, for example, there were, Andy Bergen's had, I think, the Big Spoon. They were playing at 5 o'clock in Andy Bergen's to coincide with the market. and other pubs could do something similar.
Yeah.
So
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and so you're in and out of places. Now, obviously, you have to be, COVID. You have to follow all the rules with COVID, and I know it gives less room for manoeuvre for the organisers of markets. However, to have them all running on the same days at the same time just doesn't add up for me. It doesn't add up because
especially when you're close together. I mean, it's not a massive county. You could easily make 2 or 3 markets in the same day.
Oh,
if
absolutely.
You're driving a car. No, maybe not cycling the bike though, John. But driving a car.
No,
you could definitely make. You could definitely make good markets.
Bob.
But I guess in all fairness, if you have 3 markets on in one day, really the people who would be exhibiting at those other markets would probably be best served being in a place like Portlaoise and making one mega market and get the best revenue and best return out of it. That said, I know you'd have people from Stradbally saying, well, hold on for a second, what about us? But yeah, it's very hard. It's a hard one to balance, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Especially when we're trying to encourage new business and collaborations. I mean, so many of the markets or so many of the market stalls can't be at both markets. So you just don't have enough staff to physically get to both markets.
But it begs the question, if we move even some of the smaller ones and everybody agrees, and we move them all to Portlaoise, where? Not the main street. And we were saying earlier on, Leicester Square.
Leicester Square. I think it should be pedestrianised. And I know it's probably not a popular opinion among particularly the staff of Leicester Square, maybe. Yeah. But I think it should be completely pedestrianised forever and leave it at that.
Are you talking about taking parking out of it altogether?
Oh, completely, yes, completely.
Well, you'd have to provide other parking spaces within the town, wouldn't you?
You would, of course. But you see, 75 to 95% of the town park in Laois Shopping Centre.
That's true.
If you look at, and the same, when Lidl opens up again, that's another part.
Yeah, what about the other 25% of park over in Leicester Square that service those businesses in the square?
But are they servicing those businesses?
Yeah,
the only one I reckon is being serviced there properly would be Mulhall's, where people will stop for something to eat.
You'd have the few businesses in Leicester House as well. So you'd have Cafe Latte, John Hogan's Butchers, the chemist. There'd have to be some provision for parking in Leicester Square. I can't take it out of it completely.
But right now, Leicester Square is probably the most dangerous square to walk across. If you walk in a straight line across Leicester Square, in any part of it, you have to walk through traffic eventually. Sooner or later, you're going to walk across 2 or 3 lanes of traffic, everybody leaving at once, and you're at jeopardy as a pedestrian.
Absolutely.
So some of it needs attention for pedestrians.
I think if you pedestrianise it, you could make it more inviting because you could do other things within the square. It could become a social place where you would hang out. And you know the way there's a couple of towns in the country, Clonakilty have an amazing Italian architect, but they have designed it so that people can sit outside. If you designed or did something like that with Leicester Square, there'd be places where people would go and hang out and sit down and have a coffee or an ice cream or whatever.
Well, on that, it is happening to some extent in Leicester Square already. So around the bike stand, there is spaces there where you can sit, which is great. The bike stand is great. All that is an improvement. But a couple of weeks ago, I witnessed an incident where the guards had to be called. Now, had the guards not been called, I would have phoned the guards, because you had a driver park up, where you have this walkway marked in the ground from All Books leading down to Mulhall's. And there's a gap there just before the seating is, and off to the left you have the bike stand parked there. So all the pedestrians had to go left and right out into traffic. And right, of course, going right, you have that flow of traffic. You're walking right into the flow of traffic. It's not good. The layout. You could, I take Donal's point on board. You could have retain an element of parking there, but do we need all that parking?
You do, actually. No, the more I think about it, because that really services the main street as well. Those parking spaces. They're not just. There
has to be an alternative if you're going to do it. If you're going to pedestrianise it, even half it. You have to offer an alternative for the cars.
But there's only 150 spaces or so on Leicester Square. Maybe 100 even. Maybe less. There's so few that they had to open another car park space behind Mulhall, Super Value, near Extravision. They put a new kind of car park in there too, which serves the vegetable shop, the fruit and veg shop there.
On that point, you'll see cars circling all the time in Leicester Square looking for a slot.
It is impossible to get a parking space, in fairness, which probably makes it more dangerous for the pedestrian.
So the solution then is to keep the parking space.
Keep the parking
Donal says.
spaces.
I'd like to keep some of.
But you could keep something like what Copenhagen does or Amsterdam does, which is shared space, right? So there's a handful of car park space. There's a clear path through for drivers, but the pedestrian is king, right? So the pedestrian has all the pedestrian crossways, walkways are really clearly laid out. Massive penalties for breaking into those spaces, and it becomes a shared space where you're walking right beside the car that's driving, but you own the space as a pedestrian. You're the boss of it.
That could work actually.
Which would keep the flow of cars going, instead of them all just parking for hours.
If you plan it correctly, it will work.
Yeah.
And it could bring extra business and extra footfall to the businesses in the area, including the main street, not just Lister Square.
But many years ago, Lister Square was used for Saturday markets. I remember as a kid going to Saturday markets, and there was all stalls all around where Lister Square is now.
That would be brilliant.
Yeah, and it was a great buzz on a Saturday going down there, and it moved down towards where that Polish shop is a Polonaise down on Bridge Street.
Polonaise,
It moved in there when Hamilton Motorcycles and all that was in that area at the back there. It moved down there, but that gave a bit of a vibe to the town on a Saturday, as I remember it. But I was only a kid at the time. But it making more. Never mind taking the spaces out of it on a permanent basis, but certainly there's things that could be done on what you might consider busier days like Friday and Saturday.
To facilitate something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And to expand on that Laois Taste Market, that's fabulous and gets a lot of footfall.
It does actually. I
Yes.
did actually buy a lot of things the other day at that Laois Market. Honey again. I got
did
the
you get your honey?
I got the honey again. It's never done with honey.
Honeygate?
Just done with honey.
Oh, speaking of honey, shout out to Donny Delaney. I got my honey from Donny there at the Portlaoise Market on
You didn't
Sunday.
get me any.
Don't worry, Bob, sorry. My apologies.
We could do the same thing.
The next time.
Kildare Town, which I'm originally from, the market square there was a market town, so there's always a market there. Every Thursday there's a market there. But what they've done more recently, the last couple of years, is they completely pedestrianised one half of the square. The larger side of it, weirdly, the kind of side over towards
over Hearts,
the cathedral, over
Hearts, yeah.
They put in a really pretty coffee shop there. There's another coffee shop.
Yes.
The square, we have a square in Portlaoise, but there's one in Kildare Town. That also is there. So the two of them feed into that.
Yes.
They put out some little tables and things around the place. It looks deadly, and there's no parking there.
Did you see they did something similar in front of Lawler's Hotel in Naas?
Oh yes, they did too.
Yeah, but they have the commerce in that part of the town ruined as a result.
I know, it completely ruined.
Have it completely ruined.
You can get it completely wrong. Yeah.
So
it works in Kildare, but I think Kildare took a few years to get it together. So they tried it. It didn't quite work because nobody could stop then. But they have that market. So they already had that space.
So we could do something like that. Take a portion. Say if we looked on front of the banks there in that portion, because you can corner that off easily, and do something there.
The bit from the bank down as far as GameStop and around that way,
exactly.
that little square could be pedestrianised, and leave the Mulhalls into it.
And not just pedestrianised and just left, but pedestrianised with a plan bring in footfall and bring in a little area you could stay and have the cup of coffee or the ice cream or whatever.
Yeah.
And cultivate
and
nice
attract
outdoors.
those people that you were talking about who are parked in the shopping centre to come across.
Yes.
Yeah, encourage them across the street. 'Cause we took out the Blue Bridge. Remember the Blue Bridge?
Yeah.
Gone. All right. So
But this whole thing just begs the question too. Like the parking spaces that we do have in the town, are they all being utilised? I'm thinking in particular the parking space at the back of Shaw's.
yeah, Shaw's and Lidl. Oh, I know this plan is coming. Shaw's and Lidl are joining up their car park spaces together. So the new Lidl is going to stretch their
we're
car
being
park.
laughed at, or I've been laughed at off camera there. I'm too expressive with my hands.
Looks good on camera. It's no good on the audio podcast.
No.
What's going on?
Yeah, what's going on? We're getting slagged here.
But the car park spaces are being joined up. Shaw's and Lidl car park are going to become one car park between the two.
But
And
can I
Lidl's going to be
park
twice the size.
there if I'm going to the main street? Or could I park there if I'm going over to Lister Square for a cup of coffee?
Well, I know Lidl was always 45 minutes.
Yes.
And they're
but do I
pretty
have
strict
to be
on
a
that.
customer?
No,
do I have to be a Lidl
no, you
customer?
don't. No, you don't. But they do take your wedges, and it is pretty strict. I've seen plenty of cars being chained up there. But Shaw's are not strict, and I know that. They'd never have been. You could park there for the day, no one's going to touch you. That's just the way they are. It's just the way they have been. But now that if they're one car park and it's run by a car park group, that might change very rapidly, which could narrow your car park space. But then you have all across the front of the tax office. The county council office is all car parking there. They've blocked off the end of the county council office now, so there's no way of driving out on the street. You can drive in around the back of that. So that's all car park spaces.
And they have that parking space where you go up the ramp to it.
Yeah. And they obviously built an underground car park and then it flooded and they couldn't use it. So that wasn't smart, but it's still there though. We could fix that, I'm sure.
Yeah, everything is fixable.
Put a roof on it.
Yeah, we could fix it with money, which brings us on to swiftly onto a whole new topic here.
Nicely done, Bob. Nicely
You
done.
see the links? I'm
We
getting
saw
good at
what
these
you
links
did there.
It's good, yeah. I have a massive board. I'm be watching on YouTube. I have a huge board here beside me with lots of millions of euros written on it because there's money being given out willy nilly. No, it's not being given out willy nilly, but it's becoming a lot of money over 3 years. Portlaoise is going to get 120 million. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right, 120 million, and 16 million of that to be spent in Portlaoise. No.
6.5 on new houses and 56 top right.
Yeah.
All right, this is so many things on the board. You need to draw a picture of this, man. For God's sake, you need to cut over this. There's so many things on the board.
Yeah.
But
Matt,
the bit that I'm really interested in is where it says 750k redesigning Leicester Square to join the old new town. So it's obviously a topic within the council as well that they're going to spend money on joining this. Now, old and new town, what would you qualify that to be?
The old town is within the
walls.
of the old fort.
Okay, and then the new town then is on the opposite side of the main streets.
Yeah, when you ever look at the census, it's Portlaoise urban, Portlaoise and environs.
Correct, yeah.
And Portlaoise rural.
Yeah.
So Portlaoise urban, I think, is obviously that's the old town. That's it. And then it's the Portlaoise. What is it? Yeah, Portlaoise urban is the old town. Portlaoise and environs is anything outside of that. And then obviously rural is out beyond that again.
I wonder in the town centre how many people actually live in apartments or flats.
I know PJ and Neve are the only people to live up above their business.
Are they?
On the main street, yeah.
You must be fierce quiet there at night time, really.
Can you imagine?
But like living in that, if you think of that main street, main square, Leicester Square, all that area there where there could be places that people actually live, is anyone
to see
actually
it
live
be
there?
more social.
Yeah.
I'd love to. When you go into small little villages around the continent, you'll see the eating out, the sitting out for coffee, people living is in the town, and the big businesses and the big shopping centres are outside. So I'd love to see something like that in Portlaoise.
And is there even apartments in the town? Like, I'm trying to
on the main street opposite the bank.
Is there what?
Apartments in the middle of the town. Or like...
Well, there's flats and...
a few flats going out.
There's apartments there in Hine Square.
That's right, yeah, there is a few there. Yeah.
Right at the back. That's all I can think of.
Bloody hell.
Off the top
it's
of my
weird,
head.
isn't it, for a town of its size that we don't live in the middle of it? That there's not more in the middle.
And of course, the positive, if you had more people living in the town, I mean, basically, you could have later trading hours.
Mm-hmm.
You could have, as Trudy mentioned, have people dining outside later into the evening.
You'd even encourage ordinary shops to stay open, newsagents and so on, to stay open a bit later as well, besides pubs. Like.
Yeah. I suppose the fact that you can't buy a sliced pan on the main street in Portlaoise is indicative of the fact that there's nobody living on it.
That's it, yeah. I remember that there was a Londis, was the last shop, the actual shops I remember was right there beside Abergababer. There was a Londis there somewhere. It's the last one I remember being on the main street. There was an ordinary shop. Wasn't selling goofs or goods or whatever. But when we're looking at this list of numbers, is there anything that jumps out at people on this list here, apart from 5 million quid for a library? But is there anything that jumps out on that list that you want to talk about?
Certainly the 120 million for housing over 3 years is a pretty big one, isn't it?
It's a big number, isn't it?
It's huge,
Where's those houses going to be?
Well,
That's the question,
I mean, it's not just going to buy
That's
land.
county-wide. That's county-wide, yeah.
Isn't there land there at Tyrrell's land? Is that going to be used for?
Tyrrell's land was on that list. I saw it somewhere. 1.9 million for Tyrrell's land urban amenity.
Well, okay, the problem with Tyrrell's land, and I mean, I wish they went down this road. I mean, basically, the plan is you're going to connect it up. So you're going to, from the church, the school children can walk up the Stradbally Road, down Downs Lane, and go out to the Gael School or the Educate Together School and Maryborough schools, that campus.
Sounds like dreamland. It sounds like a lovely thing.
But I've actually, you can walk down Downs Lane, you can keep going, and you come out, there's a fence there, and basically where the retail park is, Lismar Retail Park, that's where you come out. You're actually looking over where people are.
They're building up there now. The other end of that is the schools, Educate Together and all that stuff.
Correct.
Is on one end of it. And I've seen they're ripping off lots of the woods and trees and stuff that are just there at the end of that. So are they already starting to connect those two up?
Well, see, I haven't been down there in a couple of months. But the last time I was down there, it was basically, you could go so far and no further because you fencing
That
then.
still is the case there. But when they say the Tyrrell's Land amenity, what's meant by amenity?
Is this the basketball
What's going to
court
go
now?
in?
Well, I mean, it would be the perfect location for indoor sports facility.
And is it geared towards the kids or adults or both? Do we know?
We're not going to get in.
Is it a positive either way?
Well, we're not going to get an indoor sports facility there.
That's what Portlaoise Panthers are after, is an indoor.
Well,
large
yeah,
facility.
absolutely. In Portlaoise Panthers, I mean, for just to explain to the viewers, I mean, they're bursting at the seams. I mean, they've 40 teams.
Wow.
And they're operating out of St Mary's Hall, and some schools have sports facilities, and they're using those as well. I mean, the club to be running 40 teams, to have produced international players, men and women, and now their first international coach as well, off a shoestring, off basically infrastructure that's not up to standard.
It's an old hall now. I was in it a couple
But
of years back.
they have done an incredible job on it. It's looking...
But they need a bigger facility, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
And
that's
they're
the
only
bottom
going to
line.
get bigger.
Yeah, but it's not only basketball. It's not only...
Yeah.
We've had this debate before. For example, our badminton club, the Portlaoise Badminton Club, they have to go out to Vickerstown.
And handball as well.
Vickerstown.
Vickerstown.
That's
Yeah.
gas. For the
unbelievable,
size of the
isn't it?
town we have. That
And
has
the
got a different
population in the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not only badminton, basketball, handball. We don't have a handball court.
Sports like karate and judo and stuff
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
Well,
Gymnastics.
A lot of those are kind of private, smaller clubs and smaller dojos.
Yeah, but if you built a facility, an indoor sports facility, they could all use it.
Yeah.
Everyone could use it.
Yeah, well, see, I think people have to kind of stand back now from the situation, and they have to understand one thing, like Portlaoise will be a city.
For sure.
I've been like a broken record on this for 10 years, and people have been laughing at me. No, John, you're just raving, as per usual. But you look around you now, I mean, there's houses being built. I'm being too expressive with my hands again.
Isn't it still
We like your passion, John. Go on,
Yes.
sorry.
Isn't
Yep.
it still the fastest growing town in the country?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I
think
mean
maybe-
we're up
maybe
to
in Europe.
about 27,000. Okay, I think Kilkenny City.
We don't have a swimming pool. Still not open. Sorry, the
Well,
swimming pool bothers me.
on that, they're looking for staff, and it's like every business in the country, they can't
You
get
know.
staff. So I mean, check it out. Go on to laoispeople.ie. Just
What
type
kind
in
of
jobs.
staff are they looking for?
It's all up on the website, and just type in jobs, and they're looking for staff.
So if anyone's listening,
So I got
and
off the
interested,
phone. I got off the phone to them today, and it's basically we just want the staff. We want the staff, and we're ready to go.
'cause that's a
incredible.
fabulous facility as well, and
Yeah.
wrong that it's closed.
It is, because the only place we have
But
is
you
public.
but you have to have the staff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, all these facilities have to be adequately staffed. See, this is the other side. This is what the public don't see.
What about the old staff that were there, John? What about the people who lost their jobs?
Well, see,
those people were very upset at the time. So surely they're ready.
They were actually. They
Yeah.
were quite vocal about that.
Surely they're ready to go. No, I mean, presumably, I mean, they're still.
Well, it's a very good question. But, I mean, what I've been told today is we're still looking for staff.
What? Okay, I must have a look.
Donald, that's all I know.
It'd be
So
nice to know where they went.
I'm telling you and the viewers what I've been told.
Yeah.
And the staff.
So if anyone's listening or
Yeah,
watching,
apply.
they could go and
But
look
then there
and
is
apply.
jobs going absolutely everywhere in Laois at the moment. Everywhere you
Yeah.
go in, there's signs. I was in Dunn stores, the big Dunn stores. They've got a massive poster walking through the front door. Just drop in your CV. We'll give you a job. Just turn up tomorrow. There's a job there for
Yes.
Wow.
Now, on the subject of Dunn stores, very nice job done on the old, what we term the old Dunn stores.
We call it Little
On the-
Duns. Everybody's
the little
different name
Duns
for it.
I call it
Little
Goo Bays.
on the green road. On the green road there on the Mountmillick Road. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
nice,
a site
nice
that
job.
needs a little bit more redevelopment as well. A couple of empty stores there. Paddy's newsagent's the longest I've
Yes.
ever seen. The only real newsagent that's left in the world, I think. Proper Place got like a wall of newspaper
Yeah,
stuff.
yes, newspapers from all over.
But
the
everything
country.
else is kind of missing. I know there's a hairdresser down there, and there's
little
a cafe.
cafe.
Mary's Cafe is down there as well.
That's gone.
Is that gone as well?
Yeah. Isn't
No
it?
way.
Yeah,
She's
Oh,
closed
no.
down. Yeah, she's
yeah,
retired.
I've heard
That was
there's a chain coming in.
Oh, great. Just what we need.
Oh, that was
I
lovely.
won't name names.
Another franchise. But that's another place that needs to be developed. There used to be a bike shop there years ago, but it's gone.
Stuart Hamilton, wasn't it?
That's
Yeah.
right, Stuart. Yeah.
It was a good little bike shop, that place.
It was,
Again,
actually.
everything was ravaged down that part. But it's good when Dull Stores, the anchor, obviously, of the group there, redevelops, they'll do well. But any more money? So we're still looking at money on this list.
But where are these houses going to go?
Yeah, where are these
Where are
houses
they
and
gonna
what
put them?
kind of
Yeah.
houses?
Well-
We've 76.5 million for new houses and repair old ones, and 56.6 million for a direct building.
I wonder are they going to buy houses that are being built, or are they going to actually build them themselves? It'd be great to see the council actually
Building a council estate.
Building a council estate.
Yeah.
Just like the good
Yeah,
old
but
days.
is that the
Yeah.
right thing to do?
I think so. Would you care if you were homeless?
Absolutely not. But
Yeah.
I'd like to see mixed
Yeah.
societies,
Yeah.
not
but-
just have people the
council
same age with
estates
the
used
same
to
kids
be
moving in.
mixed, like everybody
Yes.
used to be
Yeah,
mixed.
they
But it
used to be
takes time
before.
for that to happen.
But now it's 10. Now it's this 10. I think it's 10% or something. Of if a new
Yeah.
build of an estate has to be 10% of
Yeah.
the houses has to be given over to.
That's
but
right.
That's a great idea
But
in
it's
its own
just
way.
it's just the limitations put on people that are trying to get into housing. If you're, I think it's if you're a couple with €521 between you in a week, you're gone by €1. You know, I mean, between two people.
Yeah, it
you know,
really
it
Let's
needs
go
to
into
be
your
looked
boss
like.
and going, please God, don't pay me the €1.
I know. So then
Don't
they're-
pay.
Yeah.
So then you have
Lower my wages.
So then you have county councillors encouraging people to give up their jobs and go on the dole, and then
Yeah.
Yes.
then they go on a housing waiting
Yes.
list, and they're on the housing waiting list for 3 years, and then they go into an estate where everybody, if for instance it's a council estate, everybody's in the same boat.
Yes.
They're after been on the waiting list for so long, and it's crazy. It's a crazy policy.
It's a
nuts.
crazy policy, and of course that leads to certain housing estates being stigmatized.
That's more what I meant
And
by, yeah.
stigmatized,
Yeah.
and then you have this perception, real or not, that some estates have a lot of antisocial behaviour and a lot of problems with it. But yeah, it's a crazy system.
There has to be a bit of balance.
Yeah.
But will we get it? Will we get it? Because we're about to spend 76.5 million
Well, we
quid.
definitely need the houses if we are the
We definitely do
fastest
around
growing
Port
town
Leash.
in
But
the country.
I'd like to see it being spread across the whole of Leash. I mean, I
Yeah.
know Port Leash is a very fast growing town. Everybody wants to live in a fast growing town. Great stuff. But there's
we could-
other places that we could do this with them to make sense
Yeah,
for
but
everybody
that,
to commute.
that then falls outside of the green policy of people having to travel to.
Yeah, but we'll go
urban
back to
centres.
last week or the week before's
We're all gonna
discussion
live in cities, that's the
on,
great part.
viable public transport. So if the viable public transport, an entire proper plan is put in place, and the houses are a couple of miles or a couple of kilometres outside the town, but there is public transport that can bring me into my job, then
Timely public transport is
Yes.
always my problem.
Yes.
It's one thing having a bus that appears twice a day, another thing having a bus that appears at the time everybody actually wants to go into
yes.
town.
Everyone needs to be in work for 9 o'clock, so the bus needs to get there at 8:50.
I know, but rarely in any part of this country does that ever really happen, even in big cities, like even in
No.
Dublin or Galway or anywhere.
Yeah,
The public transport's secondary.
yeah, exactly. The best example of that is the much lauded, for whatever reason, train service between Ballybrophy and Limerick. That obviously serves Nina and Rossgray, Clough-Jordan, and Bird Hill. That's great. But if you looked at the timetable, now hopefully it's changed since, but if you looked at the old timetable, basically the first train, if you jumped on in Ballybrophy going to Limerick, you get into Limerick at just after 11 in the morning. So if you had a 9 o'clock lecture, 10 o'clock lecture, 11
It
o'clock
doesn't
lecture,
fit.
it doesn't fit. If you had to be in to open up your shop,
Yeah, nothing worse.
Customers are waiting. It's like the bus going to Carlow, to the IT in Carlow. It leaves in the evening 10 minutes before college finishes, and it gets in there 10 minutes after college starts in the morning.
That's great.
That's wonderful.
Fabulous.
I mean,
What a wonderful service.
Yeah.
That's just ideal.
Yeah,
anyway,
but-
we're going to leave it there for 1 second because I'll bring in more guests in the next few minutes. So we'll be back right after this. And we're back. We brought in Eamon and Paddy to discuss more of these figures, these numbers, these crazy, wild numbers. Put some taming on it, Eamon, for God's sake. Tell us what we're doing.
I don't know what we're doing. That's the problem.
There's money coming in.
What we're doing. 16 million was allocated to Port Leash, broken down into 8.7 million to develop the cultural quarter,
Okay.
1.64 million for the low carbon town, 750,000 to redesign Leicester Square. Now, I don't know whether that's redesign with a piece of paper or physically do the work. 3 million in for the public realm. And
What does that mean, public realm?
I haven't.
What does that mean?
What's
3
that
million
mean?
quid is going to be spent in the public realm.
Half a clue. Paddy?
I would imagine it's in kind of public projects that people will benefit from it. It could be like statues, for example, or it could be promoting festivals and subsidising festivals that are held in the town or things like that. So the public realm could mean anything. It's kind of like... it's like it's a kind of that fund that you kind of, I won't say it's a slush fund, but it's a fund that you can use that's not defined. It's not defined. You use it at the discretion of the council, for example. But it will be put to public use.
I hope it does be used and not handed back. Like,
no, it won't be handed back.
600,000 was returned from the retrofit, which was announced in the papers as well. Which, like, the one thing you don't want to do is hand back money.
No, you should never hand back money. That's one golden rule. But having said that, I suppose there's a genuine reason why it was handed back to
Probably wasn't enough labour to do.
That's a big problem at the moment. You know, like, you can't get a builder at the moment. Any youngsters coming to me now and I say, become a plumber, electrician, a carpenter, a builder, because you'll be made for life. And it's a big problem, because I know people who are trying to even just get quotes for bank loans, not even to get the building work done, and they can't get builders to even quote at this stage, you know.
Or else they quote overpriced just because they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too.
Well, there is problems. But then again, I think prices have become inflated. Now that there's this big push on for retrofitting houses, the guys who are supplying the materials are jacked up their prices. Anytime the government puts grants into something, the prices get jacked up straight away.
Or else there's a short supply, but it's all hidden in a big shed sitting in someone's back garden.
Yeah, driving up the price even further. Yeah,
that's the way we do it. And then there's 1.9 million for Tyrrell's Land urban amenity. Tyrrell's Land now is a bit of a grey area, because there is a demand for indoor space for hall, like as in for basketball or things like that. It should, like, I don't understand why we don't look at other areas around the world, success stories that have put in accommodation, have put in, facilities to cater for, like a park and then an indoor centre, but how not just the indoor centre for people in training, that it can be used for the older generations, for maybe activities for them as well, like that, to keep it kind of going. It's, I don't know, it's in the middle of the town, like Portlaoise. You're on about accommodation earlier, about flats and apartments. Down at this old Skull Creek 3 and all, there is apartments going in there. They're actually starting work at the moment, construction-wise, and they will eventually put in retail. Like, the money's being pumped into Laois. Like, we can see it. It's going to happen. It's growing. And then gone quiet, am I?
No, you're just drifting off the mic, so you're moving your head.
All right. We can see it's happening and all that. Like, we're the fastest growing county. We know all the kind of statistics that's been said. We're not going to get smaller. We're getting bigger and bigger. Are we putting the money in the right places? Are we looking at we're looking after the future? Are we literally preparing to be bomb-proof as such? 5 million on library. I've been told that the library is going to be there's more things and more activities. You were saying, Donal?
On the library, yeah. Well, look at. I mean, I'm all for the library and any criticism of the library being built where it is. I reject that criticism, to be honest with you. And a lot of people would talk should go into the hospital or should go into housing. All that money should go into the hospital and housing anyhow, and I don't think it's a matter of that or this. I think the library is an absolute essential amenity in the town. And personally, I commend the council for this project. I say that now, but I have to see the finished product. But from everything I've seen and everybody I've spoken to, this seems like a world-class facility that we're going to have in the middle of the town.
So it is going to add value. There is going to be, instead of just reading the book, like, there is going to be, digital is going to be the way forward.
Of course.
Is there going to be a digital time?
Of course there is. Of course there is. I mean, it has to be. And I mean, we're not building an analog. We're not building an analog library in a digital age. I mean, it's not even Laois County Council would do that. So no, I think it's
future proofing it, are they?
Of course it is, and it's for the town and it's for kids coming through. And I was just saying before we went on air that I went back to college in 2011, and trying to study in the library that we have at the moment was near on impossible. Anytime I was in Mullingar on business, or there was a library in Mullingar that was just fantastic, that you could just get so much done in it, and you know, you're just there wishing you had a facility like it in Portlaoise. And now we're getting something like that. And if you're a student in third level or second level, or even primary school, I think this is a fantastic project, and I just can't wait to see the finished product. For me, it's just making use of the space that's there then as well.
Yeah. And,
you know, the fact that it is where it is, it's bringing in extra footfall to that area of the town as well. And perhaps, maybe they might be able to pedestrianise that main street effectively.
Seems to be a hot topic over the last few weeks.
Well, not like the nonsense that went on last year, the pedestrianising it in the middle of a pandemic and a lockdown. It was, you know, it was the...
What was it, for 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
I don't know what it was for, but it was, I mean, it was grim.
They also changed the flow of traffic, the direction of flow of traffic down. That kind of weird little main street, or little side street that goes off, that spurs off one side. I
mean, you'd be surprised just how wide that end of the town is. If you ever look at old photographs, you see them on some of those Portlaoise share your old photos websites and Facebook pages. I mean, that's a very wide area down there. There's so much more that can be done with that area. I mean, you have pharmacies, you have coffee shops, you have bars and restaurants down that end of the town. Now you're going to have what we hope and I believe will be a world-class library down that end of the town. I mean, people should be able to go out into that space as a public space, a public utility there, and have even slides and swings for kids, just so parents can actually sit, have their coffee. Kind
of a one-stop shop area and such. Like, to put the money into this, it needs to keep going to Main Street. It needs to keep pumping money into whether they put a roof on it, look at the empty shops, how to rejuvenate them, look at kind of using the space on the Main Street. Like, maybe we can open up a space that's a general market all year round. Yeah, I mean, not just having it on specific times of the year. Like,
you remember that was first that idea of putting a roof on the Main Street was first flagged. I think it was by the late Kathleen O'Brien or late Jerry Lodge. I'm not quite sure which one of them it was. And I remember they were the source of ridicule at the time, and I thought to myself, "Geez, that's not a bad idea." But I kind of kept it to myself because I didn't want to put my head above the parapet. Then I think I was in Australia or Thailand, I can't remember where, and I came across the street with a roof on it, but it wasn't like a domed perspex.
Not fully closed in. It was broken up.
It was there was poles, huge big poles in the middle of the street, and each pole was painted green. And then on the top of it, the roof was actually flower petals. So that they were flowing in different directions. And
see the roof down in Waterford. There's a roof square in Waterford. It's triangular roof. But it is fully roofed. So there's a proper full-size roof over the top of it. You could sit under it quite happily.
Yeah, but it's to build a roof, but it's also... Like, you can build the roof, no problem, but you need to still bring the footfall in to kind of use that.
Build it and they shall come.
But what could we put on that Main Street?
Imagine for a minute if the courthouse was removed.
Oh, that's a nice... Well, it's an eyesore.
And converted into the county museum, for example, just for talk's sake, because we're right beside the old town of Portlaoise, okay? And I know that there's 8.7 million there for developing the cultural quarter. Well, that'll take in the old town of Portlaoise and Fort Protector and all of that. So, for example, if you take the museum at that end, pedestrianise it down to the library, and do everything you've just said here, guys, okay? Repurpose houses and shops there, get people back living in the area, and then that ties in nicely with the old quarter of the town, and you have a new vibrant area in Portlaoise straight away. I agree with the roof. I was delighted to see you give Kathleen O'Brien a bit of a plug on that, Donal, on your background. But it's a good idea because we're after putting shopping centres outside the town everywhere at the detriment of the centre of the town. And by bringing back in this kind of roofed-in area, you're effectively given the feeling of a new shopping centre effectively in here, but you can repurpose it for different things.
You're repurposing a central area where, like, Main Street was always a central area too. Like, previously we could buy a paper and things like that. When we were going to school in the CBS and all, it was booming, like,
especially that end of town, down where that square coffee bar is, and down.
Well, sure, I'm old enough to remember all the traffic going from Dublin down to Limerick and Cork down that street. To be honest with you,
passing each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And people were able to park and go into Ramsbottoms or into Keegan's or wherever there. You know, there was no issue at all.
So what we're trying to say is, like, we all know that the main agenda is Laois is growing. Laois is booming, expanding. We're going to be low carbon centre of excellence. We have the population, we have the location, we have the skill set, we have everything it's like everything. We have all the materials to build a house, but what house are we building? What's going to function? What's going to function for everyone? Now we're not going to be able to please. You're not going to be able to please everyone, but straight away, what can be done? What can get the ball rolling? And like we've talked about covering the main street, we've talked about repurposing, giving new life to shops and units and things like that. That's not a big thing. Repurposing buildings is not a big thing. It's talking to the landlord, talking to maybe potential shops, businesses that maybe can collaborate, start off small and then expand and grow and develop, but also give we'll use the example of the old Ken Blacks down there. You could actually put 6-7 small retail units in that. You can go in one door and out the other. So you're going to still bring a flow of traffic down through it. And then businesses, when they get to a certain degree and they are making enough revenue, they can go into one of the closed shops that are there already, and repurpose the main street.
But if we're going to bring in more people, I mean, we're the fastest growing, Portlaoise is the fastest growing town in Ireland, right? Laois is the fastest growing county. We're going to bring more people in. We need to give more things to do. We need to give more focal points, people to go to, things, community areas people can go to, which is where this roof street comes back into it again.
It is, but if you take, I think John said earlier on, there was about 26,000 people in Portlaoise, roughly. We don't need everyone to one spot at the one time, because then you have a problem, because you have to spread them out around to the different facilities that are there. And it's, but you do need a focal point in the town too, in fairness. And that is crying out to be made the focal point, for historical reasons, for modern reasons. And, nostalgia sells, and it's nice to go to places where there is the old walls still, where there is that kind
personality, character.
Yeah, like even Kilkenny has capitalised on it big time.
But they throw a lot of food and drink into those areas, like the people can sit down and appreciate.
But then the main street of Kilkenny, where you're walking along, which is, it's sort of a shared space thing. They got this idea, like the foot road is nearly the same height as the path, but every business is full. Every single shop front has a shop in it. Yeah, like everything is occupied, and even upstairs
they control the flow. You know where to literally push them around, like.
And one of the things that gives me a bit of confidence is that our current CEO, Laois County Council, was part of that planning in Kilkenny years ago. So I'm fairly confident that he has a plan, and that's why this level of money has been applied for and got, in fairness, because he has a track record. And I'm not here to praise the man for the sake of praising him. Like, he has a track record.
But he's very commercially focused as well.
Yeah. And so from that point of view, I think we're going to see good things coming.
I think so. I think we're blessed actually to have John Mulholland in Laois County Council, to be quite honest with you. He's very forward thinking, I think, and commercially minded. So,
well, hopefully encouraging more businesses back into the main street and into Leicester Square as well, which is also missing a couple of businesses there too.
But speaking on that about business and all that, we just need, well, not that we need, it's just for businesses that want to get into this, like, you got the Leo there and all, but a lot of businesses are looking for ways of collaborating, as in talking to other business, as in sharing the cost, sharing the risk, sharing all that. We haven't got a think tank of people or industries or anything, or a space that they actually can come in off the street, knock on the door and goes, hey, I'm thinking about setting up this business, do you know such and such, or anything like that, any information.
But in fairness, Eamon, I'll contradict you there a little bit, in the sense that we spoke last week about the hubs. And the local knowledge on the ground. I mean, you were telling us earlier before we went on air of, and I'm not going to go into the full details now because that's not fair, but of someone who contacted you.
It's still in the primary. Yeah, he contacted me through,
Yeah, but he contacted you and you were able to make phone calls and get things going. Now, how far that'll go, I don't know, but at least you were able to make things happen.
Yeah.
So there are people in the town here, like yourself, and other people in other towns around the county that can make things happen too when people want to get that information.
I do agree, like hubs are, like we preach that now, the hubs are just probably a great place for them to go into to talk and communicate and see what, who's in the area, do you know what's going on, can you recommend someone, I'm new to the town. And this was the contact that rang me yesterday. They're not from the county, they follow me on Facebook and they saw me on Insta or on LinkedIn, and they made contact with me. They came in here, met me, picked my brain, looked for advice, and I had no problem helping because I had all the information for them.
And it's your intervention that may bring that business to Laois.
Yeah, and this is a very big influential business.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. So therefore, we do have people in the county that are willing to reach out and help the others to come in here. So there's a whole new mindset going on in the county here. at the moment, and you're part of that, and everyone in this room in their own fields are doing things differently than were done 20, 30 years ago, and they're not afraid to make the phone calls, they're not afraid to put their neck out on the line there to try and help someone, and that's what we need, and we have it at the moment. So I actually see all this money coming in as being great.
It is great, yeah.
Because now there's a confidence and in Laois that wasn't there before. There's people able to go out and get the money to come in now. It still has to be utilised well, but you don't get... I've seen some of these plans, because we apply for state funding ourselves in the MDA here in Mountmellick, and you don't get money just for the sake of getting it. You do have to have good plans in place. And for Laois to be able to get that level of money, it's shown that there's an air of confidence there at state at national level that Laois can deliver the goods based on this seed capital.
It's hopefully going to be bigger companies are going to take notice and go, geez, at least you're getting a lot going on down there. Maybe it's time that we probably get our foot in the door as well.
Well, it's up to our local politicians then to sell that hard to those to the IDA and to businesses coming into the country as well. So I mean,
remote business at the moment on LinkedIn. I mean, I got another 30 odd jobs this morning.
Well, did you apply?
It's all remote. Every one of them is remote. Nobody wanted to go in to work anymore because they don't know if they're going to be open.
You see what was on the news was it yesterday before? They're saying that the traffic in Dublin is 1% lower than it was post-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Or pre-COVID, sorry. Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still, and even though the government announcing that remote working is, you should be remote working at the moment if possible. I don't think it's happening.
There's very few people doing that.
I was in Dublin pretty much every day this week, I think, and last week. The traffic is way lighter. I don't know where they're getting those figures from.
I don't either. No,
they're as ridiculous. They're as ridiculous as the figures they gave when there was protests against the water charges, saying there was 300 people out and looking.
I think there's someone sitting on the bridge. They wait about an hour. No one's looking. They go off for a couple of hours and just multiply the numbers.
I don't believe. I don't believe those numbers. I can see it for myself.
Yeah.
I can see it for
they
myself.
They get paid by the job, not by the hour. So they're
Now the only
I seen the N7 the same. Even on Naas Road, Longmire Road.
It's much lighter.
It's much lighter than it used to be. It used to be backed out to the Red Cow there for ages.
You can use the passing out lane, which is amazing.
Yeah. And I'm dealing with businesses in Dublin city centre at the moment, and footfall, and particularly coming out of offices, is non-existent. I used to work for a company called Compass, it was the world's biggest contract catering company, and they would do the food staff feeding programs for Google and Pfizer and companies like that. And there's guys who used to work there as well who have gone to competitors like Aramark and ISS, and office blocks are just empty. There's 11 and 12 people in it, and they're just facility management. Workers keeping that machine running while they're waiting for the people to come back.
But are the people coming back? I mean,
they don't want to.
Who wants to go back to that?
Well, nobody does. But I mean, there's still that culture of presenteeism, where they want people in the offices. It's just that's never going to leave some.
Hybrid working is the new thing. Isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen,
remote working is a very, let's just say, it's a very mixed word. People think that you're working out in the bog. They say remote working,
Yeah.
Well, Donal, on those offices in Dublin, I mean, there's two ways of looking at that. There's an age group that always want to go to the city. They'll want to hang out in nightclubs at night and have the life, and then after a few years they'll settle down and they'll want to live in a nice house down the country that they can afford to live in. But there's always going to be that age group that will want to live in a city somewhere. But there's that other age group that don't want to live in the city and they want to live down here, but they want the salaries and the jobs that are based in the city, but they want them closer to home. Yes.
Yeah.
And they want to be able to afford to live too, in fairness. I suppose once you get that mortgage and have kids and things like that, you have no money anymore. So you need to go somewhere that you can afford, and that's what's down the country, and that's where our remote working hubs and things are working are the solution. But those places that are empty at the moment, there will always be a generation that will go through the phase of wanting to be in the bright lights and things like that. Now, my only problem with the money coming into Laois here at the moment, and I suppose I'm being a bit parochial with it, I think Port Arlington and Mountmellick is getting a small amount of that pie, and there's other towns then like Rathdowney and Abbeyleix and Burstnashry are getting nothing that I can see other than if it fits in with houses being built and things like that.
You're getting $1 million each.
2 million. No, there's no guarantee it's $1 million each.
We don't know.
If you think about it, Mount Mellick at the moment probably needs a couple of things, and one of them
A bypass.
Well, anyone got money for a bypass? Mount Mellick needs a bypass.
Yeah, it does need traffic flow control, all right, of some
And flood
nature.
barriers as well, if anyone's got
Flood
spare.
barriers.
Now that's
too,
a
yeah.
separate issue, and there is money allocated for that. In fairness, so and that's progressing. But there's things like. Do you know, like the public? Maybe this is where the public realm money comes in, but it's confined to Portlaoise, as far as I know. That 3 million in the public realm.
Yeah, it's part of the 16 million.
But like Mount Mellick had an old canal, it had an old railway station. Okay, now I'm going to ignore the railway station for the minute and focus on the canal. It's crying out that the old harbour and canal should be dug out for about 1 kilometre out along the route of the old canal, and turn that into an amenity for the public, water amenity, so you can boating, swimming, all of that in it. Outdoors, and it would be a lovely tourist attraction because you can have an old barge.
To dredge it and widen it, or just dredge it?
Just dig it out,
Yeah.
now bring it back to the original, but just only go about 1 kilometre out the road with it, so that it's there, kind of like it's representing that historical past. And as Eamon said on one of the podcasts about if there's a barge on it, it can be Airbnb during the winter months. You know what I mean? So from that point of view, something like that. We could do with having money. Obviously, the traffic issue is a major issue in Mount Mellick, and it needs to be dealt with.
It used to be worse. I know when we were all travelling here, there, and everywhere, Mount Mellick was an awful bottleneck. But it's going to get back that way again.
It is.
Trucks
It
and
is.
buses and stuff are going to just murder that town again.
And well, it depends if we can get fuel and afford the fuel
That's another
to be able
part,
to
yeah.
do it. You know, in fairness,
180 litre, it's not funny anymore.
no, it's not funny at the moment. And like that has a knock-on effect then for people. Food. The cost of living, everything is going through the roof, and that's going to have a huge negative effect on the economy, and we're just going to have to do something about it. But like, if you take, I'm going to change the subject now slightly, go back to the housing here. I see there's 120 million for housing. If that 120 million, if you strip out the VAT out of that, just for one thing, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. So you have if you have 120 million ex VAT, and don't charge the VAT or claim back the VAT on it, it's going to make a huge difference. Both the extra number of houses that you can either retrofit or rebuild, also to the cost of people trying to buy these houses. Because at the end of the day, the state doesn't want to be left with a whole lot of houses that it owns. Let people own their own houses, but let them be affordable for people to buy. Take the hit on the VAT and accept the fact that you're going to get PAYE taxes out of the people working on it, and let that be the only tax you take off it, and make those houses affordable for people. Because someone was telling me yesterday that an average house price in Dublin is 450,000. Who in the name of God can afford to pay that for a house, like, you know? And even down here now, I suppose you're looking at the guts of 200,000, 220,000 for a house.
If you get a house for that, fair play.
I'd say more.
I say at
More.
the
Get
moment,
them more now.
there's lads bidding up to 280, 300, and didn't have to spend a further 60, 80,000 on them.
And then
Yeah.
first-time buyers can only buy new houses with
But there is
first-time
no new
buyer
house.
grant. So
Yeah.
But there is no new house.
there's no new houses, so they can't buy anything.
Yeah, so like a house
Well, a
shouldn't
new-
have to
new-
cost that kind of money.
No.
In fairness, it's only bricks and mortar at the end of the day.
And there's 13 houses in Laois at the moment to rent. In Laois, not Port Laois, Laois.
But then you've
13.
you got the bureaucratic stuff. Then like it could cost you 35,000 to get your ratings on your house, whether it's an A, B, or C, which your you know the way to do this testing of air testing and all that. Like, that's ridiculous.
See these houses in Clonrusk as well. There's a bunch of houses up in, is it Clonrusk Abbey?
Clonrusk Abbey, yeah.
Yeah, that have the contract is run out, and the builder now can just put them on the open market as well. So,
Coincidence, isn't it?
isn't it just? Well, I think he was blaming a shortage of staff or materials as well on
Well, Brexit first and then COVID maybe after.
Oh, yeah,
whatever it's
yeah.
on it.
There's
Yes.
always a good reason. There's always a good reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have to cut back to round up the news for the rest of the evening. So we'll be back right after this. So we're back, and we're back with familiar faces again. So I want to introduce them a second time. But we are going to cover one thing that's coming. Trudy's going to bring it to us, which is TP Adventures. Explain, Trudy, what this means.
Well, I think we've been speaking about collaboration for about 3 weeks now, and we all need some really good news.
It's on everyone's mind, though. Collaboration is very important.
Absolutely. Well, it is, isn't it, really? So TP Adventures Ireland, if anyone wants to look it up, tpadventuresireland.ie. And on Instagram at the moment and Facebook, you'll see Ed's new announcement. He, at the moment, is based in the hills in Wicklow, just outside Lara, and he is moving Well, he's not moving. He's expanding to Laois. He's from Mellick and he's expanding to Ballykilcavan.
He's coming home.
He's coming home. He's been working on this for a long time, and I can't really say too much, but watch that space. So watch Ballykilcavan and watch Ed. And what he runs in Wicklow stems from a love of outdoors that Ed has, and it's like an outdoor adventure camp with an educational twist. So it's groups, it's large corporate companies, it's families. Obviously there's teepees involved, there's outdoor dining, there's foraging, there's mindfulness, there's forest bathing. So he's going to be doing this, but he's trying to expand all around the country. But the biggest trail will be around Laois, and the first start of it will be Ballykilcavan, hopefully in the new year.
Nice. That's good news. That's good. That's new jobs coming into the area.
Absolutely. And he is looking to collaborate. He will involve tourism, arts and crafts, food producers, obviously David. So he's looking to collaborate with lots of people. So really watch that space and see what he's putting up. He's a really good guy. Good.
It's good to see people coming home. What do you reckon, Donal?
Sounds good to me.
New job opportunities.
Looking forward to seeing it, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be good to see something new come to the county.
What he has in Wicklow is absolutely phenomenal. It's mind-blowing. It really is.
Right.
So it would be amazing if you could even get a small bit of that. And he's using a lot of David's land over there in Ballykilcavan. So he'll do lots of things.
That's the
with
brewery
it.
area.
That's the brewery area.
Deadly campsite in a brewery.
He's
What could go wrong?
There's also a full orchard out there in Ballykilcavan. So he's
Make
going to
cider.
develop the orchard. Exactly. That's where I was thinking. So David
Sorted.
might expand as part of this as well.
David, we need a sample of your cider if you're ever going to make some on the show.
Absolutely.
If you fancy sponsoring the show, just get in touch with us anytime you want. John, you have a few shout outs to do.
Yeah, more good news on just following on from Trudy there. 4 Laois companies are up for an award or awards in this year's Generation Apprenticeship Employer of the Year. So shout out first of all to Damien Campion, Damien Campion Electrical Limited. Well done,
Damien. Well done.
Well done, Damien, and all the staff there. To a big shout out to, again, Tommy Buggy, property partners there in the Market Square in Port Laois. Well done, Tommy, and all the staff there. They're up for the award as well. Gerard McGee, Allwood Architectural Joinery. So well done, Gerard, and all the staff there. They're up for the same award. And who else? Now, there should be somebody else. I don't want to leave anyone out. I'm sure there was a 4th one. Oh, the ESB Networks, shortlisted in the large enterprise category.
For Laois.
For Laois as well.
All right, okay.
So four Laois companies. Well done. Now, I have a further, before I forget now, I have a further shout out to, firstly, to Laura Devoy from Stradbally, based on, she's attending Mary Immaculate College in Limerick. Great old spot. And on the basis of her Leaving Cert results, she got a scholarship valued at €2,000. So well done, Laura. And just down the road in Timahoe, Ciara Brennan, the same. She got a €2,000 scholarship as well.
Congratulations.
Well done. So obviously they breed them very, very smart out in Stradbally and Timahoe. Isn't that right, Donal? Unlike the townies.
So the future is bright, John.
Won't box yet now.
Come on, Tommy. Go on.
Very bright people in Port Laois as well, you know.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
But fair play to those two.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the future is bright, isn't it?
Well
so
done.
if these awards are existing businesses, and hopefully these 2 girls will be 2 of many coming on.
Where are
in the
those
future.
awards being held? Do you know?
That I don't know, and I should know, Donal. It's a good question.
Sounds like a great night.
That's a wonderful question.
That we're
it really
missing.
is. If only he'd done any research.
Finally caught him.
Oops. Well,
I thought we were all heading to it.
We could always have it in Ballykilcavan.
Everything else is happening in Ballykilcavan.
That's-
It is now,
That's
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
that is for sure. Anyway, thank you very much for joining in the show this week, everybody who's been, and Donal, our guest
Thank
in
you.
tonight, and we will be back again next week for another show coming up to the Christmas. We're running out of time. We're also needed to get a sponsor on board. If you're interested in sponsoring at any point, or you want us to come along to your business trade show or something that's happening, get in touch with us on the show as soon as you possibly can. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you in the next episode.